Welcome to our webinar, E-Signatures in an Ever-Changing World. My name is Nicole Schmeida. I'm the marketing specialist here at DocuWare, and I'll be moderating today's session. The webinar today will be presented by Rich Moss, Regional Sales Director and Document Management Expert here at DocuWare. We also have Daniel Translator, VP of Sales from Validated ID on the line, who will be available to answer questions during the Q&A. The webinar is being recorded and will email to you as soon as it's ready, along with a copy of the slides. On the right, you'll see today's agenda. For the first few minutes, we'll go over what are electronic signatures and its use cases, and how DocuWare can equip you with a secure e-signature process. Then we'll go right into a live demo and open it up for Q&A at the end. Before we begin, Daniel, please introduce yourself and say a few words.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining us. As Nicole said, my name is Daniel Translater. I'm the VP Sales of Validated ID. And you'll see today our solution integrated with DocuWare. And thank you, Rich and Nicole, for inviting us. We're very happy to be here.
Great. Thank you, Daniel. Thank you again, everyone, for joining us today. And I'll pass it off to Rich.
Thanks, Nicole, and good afternoon, everyone, and thanks very much for joining us today. As Nicole said, my name is Rich Moss, and I am Regional Sales Director for the New York metro area here at DocuWare. I thought today it was to start today with this quote, thought it was appropriate given the events of the last few months. And I hope everyone that's on the call is safe and healthy and has been minimally impacted both personally and professionally. Along with taxes and public speaking, change is one of those things that people really are very comfortable with. And change was really thrust upon us very quickly over the last couple of months. And I think it's safe to say that some of the things we're currently experiencing will become commonplace in our work lives, primarily people working from home, which brings us to our topic today. So our focus is electronic signatures, and what you'll see is how we can do that with DocuWare and a digital signing authority, and that's validated ID. But first, we need to learn a little bit about electronic signatures. An electronic signature is a legal concept, and what that does is it allows you to have a lasting record of a signer's intent to do business with you as either a company or a candidate that's intent on accepting a job offer. So the digital signature is the encryption technology used inside the application to go out and collect the signature. The e-signature allows your business to securely send and manage document-based transactions while ensuring customers can quickly and easily sign the documents. And this can be done from anywhere, anytime, and on any device. The Association for Information and Image Management, or otherwise known as AIM, did a poll of customers that are currently using electronic signatures. And of course, I'm not going to read the whole slide to you, but a couple of things I think that are important to consider. 84% consider authorization through signatures as an essential or very important part of their business. 30% of the processes are delayed on average 1 week. So think about that when you're trying to get a contract signed, or you try to get a sales order through and it's being delayed because of that. And approximately 50% of your printed documents are only being printed for the reason of being signed. We can get rid of that, streamline those processes, get rid of that waste. Aside from the reasons I just mentioned and what you can see on the screen, I'm sure you can think of other examples in your business where you might be able to utilize this. Some of the use cases that we can look at, and I'm sure as you go through this today, you'll think of other areas where this would work for you in your particular business. But what we see is a lot of e-signature use in sales, such as sales contracts that need to be signed off by customers, in partner and client relationships, whether that's an agreement or annual certifications that need to be signed. We see this also in human resources with employee onboarding or documents throughout the year that employees need to sign. and also in the retail banking world, where we have a form to issue a new credit card or a form to update an address. There are still a tremendous amount of organizations out there that still have that paper PDF form that customers have to sign off on, and then you have to have some 2 or 3 step review process to make sure that the data is that was given was transposed correctly when it was typed to update the information. So for our example today, we're going to take you through a quick contract signing process. Some of the other areas where we see e-signatures being used could be a mortgage application or a mortgage loan, an insurance for sign-off on an insurance declaration, and also within manufacturing in the quality assurance process, and obviously in the healthcare, patient registration, service authorization, and so on. So DocuWare and validated ID can be combined together to help make the processes you're currently working with much easier by taking the signing process of the certificate, the digital certificate, and building it into a workflow. And what it does is it gives DocuWare a sort of monitoring ability with the advantage of retrieving that signature and bringing it back into DocuWare and continuing the process. And as you'll notice on the workflow layout that you see here on the screen, we can put this at any point during the process, and you'll see that today. So who's Validated ID? So Validated ID is a standalone Microsoft Azure hosted service. And what they do is they connect to DocuWare, and they allow DocuWare to automatically pass the document that is going to be signed to Validated ID, and then bring that signed document back into DocuWare. And incidentally, Validated ID is very similar to DocuSign, which you've all heard of. So with the Validated ID integration into DocuWare, at any step during the process, we can send the document along for a signature. Validated ID then applies its rules, and after signature is complete, it'll pass the document back to DocuWare, allowing the workflow to continue. It's also worth noting that the signature can be fixed or dynamic, depending on how you want to set that up. To understand a little bit more about the laws governing e-signatures in the US, there's a couple of things to take into consideration. One is called the Uniform Electronic Transaction Act, and the other is the Electronic Signatures in Global and National Commerce Act. And what these laws highlight is a digital signature is only valid if the signer intends to sign the document and there's no possibility of forgery. To meet the requirements, the system that's being used to capture the e-transaction must either keep an associated record that details how the signature was captured, or make a textual or graphic statement that can be added to the signed record. Both parties must either express or imply consent to do business electronically, and most e-signature softwares will prompt the user to confirm their consent before they sign. And this acts as a standard consent clause. It also states that electronically signed documents are only valid if they are capable of being retained and are available for later reference by all parties involved in the contract. And lastly, just like a paper document, records that have been e-signed need to be kept secure from tampering, alteration, and unintentional loss of data. So we've just touched a little bit on e-signatures, and let's talk a little bit about the 3 different types that are available through DocuWare and Validated ID. So first is a remote signature, which I'll be showing you that today. With a remote signature, you'll be able to capture a signature from any device, like a mobile phone, a tablet, and of course your laptop. And this is done through a 2-factor authentication, where the document would be sent to a signer's email address. The signer then receives a code via text, and that allows the signer to access the document and apply a signature. A second type is what we call a biometric signature. It's a process that's used in face-to-face situations, like a new account opening in a bank, where a signature is applied to a signature pad. we're not going to show that today, obviously, because we're really focused on our current at-home working conditions. And lastly is a stamp. And the stamp method is just a method of applying a signature. We have that built right into DocuWare, where you'll be able to apply that stamp. So what we're going to do now is we're going to move over to our presentation. So what you're looking at on the screen right now is the DocuWare user interface. So for those of you on the call who are not familiar with DocuWare, we are a 30-year-old software company started in 1988 in Gemmering, Germany. Our European corporate headquarters is still in Gemmering, which is just outside of Munich, and our North American headquarters is just north of Manhattan in New Windsor. When we talk about document management, we're talking about all the paper and files that are in your office. They could be in file cabinets, they could be on thumb drives, they could be on hard drives, they could be on your laptop. And the problem with that is that information is all disparate. It's all in different locations. And what a document management system will do, what DocuWare does, is bring all of that information together in a single repository and makes that accessible to everybody within the organization. And DocuWare is available to you as both as a cloud solution and an on-premise. On-premise is simply installed in your environment on your servers, and cloud is a subscription-based license, and it's cloud-based. So either one that you choose, you still have the same user interface, which is what we're looking at right now. So here on the right-hand side is our viewer window. So when we open up a document, it's nice and big here in this window. So if we double click on this document, you'll see how that opens up nicely. On the left-hand side, this is where we interact with our documents. So when we are working with DocuWare, we bring our documents into always our document tray. The document tray is like an in-basket on your desk. It's the beginning of the process for your documents. And the way we bring documents in are we can scan with a desktop scanner, a multifunction printer. We can do a drag and drop right off of our desktop right into the system. I can do an import from a database. So there's multiple ways of bringing in. I can even bring them in through email. So once they're in the system, what we would do is we would want to go and we would want to store that document. So when I hit my store button here, what you're seeing are all individual filing cabinets. So with DocuWare, you'll be able to have as many filing cabinets as you need, and they're all going to be named individually. And the way that the permissions work is we would create a group permission. So for instance, if you were working in finance, only the folks that were working in the finance group would have access to that finance filing cabinet, and they wouldn't see any other filing cabinets that they don't have access to. Once in a filing cabinet, we can give individual permissions to each person that's a part of that group. So these are the levels of security that come with DocuWare. We can also go down to the document level and set permissions on the document level. Some of the other things that are available to you, we have our toolbar here, and with our toolbar, we're able to email from here. We're able to print, change the orientation of the document. We're able to change the size of the document. I can annotate the document. If I wanted to put a message on top of the document, I can do that. I can point information out to people on that particular document. I can highlight information on my document, and I can actually redact information on the document as well. So what we're doing here is we are just putting a layer on top of this document. We are not changing this at all. We are just adding this layer onto the document. I can actually turn around and email this document out with or without annotations in a PDF format. So I didn't want to go, I just want to give you a high level view of what the DocuWare user interface looks like. And what we're going to do is we are going to start our process for e-signature. So what we're looking at here is a DocuWare electronic form. So this was created inside of DocuWare, and I took the liberty of filling this out before we started. And what you're seeing here are all the different fields that we've created. So with this particular form, what's going to happen when I submit this, this is going to merge with a contract that's in DocuWare and fill out all that repeatable information. So you'll see all the different fields here. We can create drop-down fields. We can create mandatory fields. We also have fields that if I click here, it'll prompt me to do something else and fill out another piece of the form. So we can go through the entire process with this form. It's all filled out. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to submit this. So when I submit this, what's happening is it's starting a workflow, and it'll flow back into DocuWare. And what it's going to do is it's going to prompt me to sign this document. So when we go back to our DocuWare user interface, you'll see we have a task. So when I go into my task list, it's asking me to sign the contract. So all I simply do is double click on that. I can open up the document, and you'll see that now the form that we filled out is gone, but what has happened is all of the information that we filled out on that form is now filled out all the different areas of this particular contract. So I know that I need to sign a particular page in this, which is going to be page 5. So I'm going to scroll through page 5. Obviously, I would go through my entire contract, making sure that all the information is correct. And when I get to page 5, I'm going to digitally stamp this document. So you'll see here we have our stamps button. Now, when I grab a stamp, it shows my signature stamp, and I'm going to go and I'm going to lay that into the area that needs to be signed. Our stamps also give the ability that this stamp that I'm putting in here is going to kick off a workflow, but you can also have a stamp internally just to mark something as paid, or just have a digital signature where it's not involved in a workflow. So it all depends on what you're going to be doing and what your particular process is. So when I put in the digital stamp, what I need to do is I need to put in my password. I hit OK. And now what's going to happen is this document is going to flow to an email address, the email address that I put on that particular form. So what we'll do now is we'll move over to our email, and we open up our email, and you'll see that it says access to the document. So when I open up the email from validated ID, it's prompting me to go through and take a look at the signature. And I can start the process simply by hitting start. What will happen now is it will open up that contract. And again, as the signer, I can go through the contract, make sure everything looks good to me. And then when I get to the area that I want to sign, I simply hit sign. So when I click on sign, what's going to happen is it's going to generate a code, and it's going to be sent to my cell phone. And when that code comes in, I'll be able to put that in. And here it is, 43. So we put in our code, and now it's prompting me to sign. I go to my signing pad. I hit finish. And now this document has been electronically signed. Once it goes through the process, it'll close out, and it'll send this back into DocuWare. So our signature is complete. And now let's go back into DocuWare and take a look. So if I do a search, it'll show me the contracts that have been signed. So when we go into DocuWare, we can open this up. Here's our contract. And we want to scroll down to where it was signed by the signer. I'm going to scroll over to page 4. And it'll show us the signature. So I now have the ability, if I want to show this to see the validation on it, I can actually download this document. And what will happen is this will open up as a PDF. And if I scroll down to where the signature is, and I hover above it, and I click on that, it'll show that the signature validation status of this particular document. So we'll close this, And you also have the ability to have a report generated from validated ID. So when we open this up, you'll notice that I have two separate documents in here. We have the contract, but when I move over to the second document, you'll see that here is the contract, the report that has been created from validated ID, showing that the document has been signed. It's a two-page document, so this would be automatically attached to the document that was signed. So that is the process that we wanted to show to you today. So I'm going to open it back up to Nicole for questions.
Great, thanks, Rich. Thanks for that
Sure.
demo. So what you saw today was introductory on electronic signatures. If you would like to see more in-depth features regarding DocuWare in general, or how to implement electronic signatures into your process, we definitely want to hear from you. You can request a personalized demo. You can email us anytime at the address on the screen, contact.us@docuware.com, or if you're working with an authorized DocuWare partner, definitely reach out to them to get started. And just want to remind everyone, we also have Daniel on the line from Validated ID. He'll be helping answering some of your questions today. So with that, let's take a look at the first question. And also, Daniel, you can unmute yourself now. So the first question is, are multiple signatures allowed?
So thank you, Nicole, for the question. So in that sense, the answer is yes. You can add multiple signers who can sign the document. That's something that we definitely support. You can put about 80 signers. We have tested with about 80 signers. So yes, the answer is you can have multiple signatures in the document.
Great, thank you. Next
and also
question.
To touch on that real quick, Nicole, also from a stamp perspective with DocuWare, multiple stamp signatures can be applied to a document through a workflow throughout inside of DocuWare as well.
Got it. Next question is, two people asked similar questions. Are these options available to on-premise installations, cloud-based, or both?
Which, or do you want me to answer?
Yeah, go ahead, Daniel. I'll let you take that one. Thank you.
So the solution, the connector has been created by DocuWare, and it supports both the on-premise and the cloud solution. With the cloud solution, it's free of charge. With the on-premise solution, it has an extra charge, but it's offered for both cloud and on-premise solutions.
Got it. A few people asked for pricing on this solution. We can follow up with you guys definitely after this call to put you in touch with the right person regarding that. Next question is, can a user use a TOPAS, T-O-P-A-S signature pad connected to the computer?
Yeah, so the topic of the topaz and these kind of solutions is that they are peripherals and they are quite difficult to support. You need to have drivers and things like that. What Rich was saying is we have also the biometric signature, and instead of topaz devices, we use tablets, Android, Windows, iOS, Chromebooks, which makes significantly easier the support of the solution. So the answer will be no, we do not support Topaz or Wacom devices because they're more complex. We prefer to use biometric tablets that can capture the same biometric data, and you can use them for other purposes as well without the need of drivers and things like that. So we have a solution that is exactly the same idea, significantly more secure, significantly more easy to maintain. So please contact your DocuWare partner who will be able to show you an integration also with this kind of solution, as I said, with iOS, Android, and Windows, and even Chromebook devices.
Yes, and also just to remind everyone, we are recording this in case anyone needed to hop off the line. We do have a good amount of questions here. The next question is, can DocuWare be easily integrated with other signature softwares? Is it possible to do remote signing in DocuWare without a third-party e-signature software?
Rich, do you want to take that one?
Yeah, Nicole, could you read that question again? Because I just want to make sure I have that clear.
Yeah, it's a two-part question. The first one is, you showed the validated ID signer. Is there other signature software available to be integrated? And then they also ask, do you suggest on how remote signing can be done in DocuWare without a third-party e-signature software, if that's possible?
So as far as other e-signature companies, we are currently looking at DocuSign. So we're working on that. So it would be DocuSign and Validated ID are the two companies that we're currently working with. As far as signing without a third party, um, for an electronic signature, you're going to need that third party. So internally in DocuWare, stamps would be the one way to go as far as signing off on a document. But outside of that, sending that to someone else, what that person would have to do if they're using a different e-signature company, they would have to sign that, and then it would be emailed back to DocuWare. I'd like to dig into that one a little bit more so we can, whoever's asking that question, we could definitely reach out to you and have a deeper conversation on that.
Yep, definitely. Next question, is the PDF viewer a part of DocuWare, or does the signer need the application on their device?
So you need the application on the device, but it can be any PDF viewer. It doesn't need to be any specific viewer to be able to see it. We do recommend Adobe Reader and similar because they know how to treat very well the signature topic, but it can be any PDF reader can basically do the job. So no specific needs for anything in that sense.
Yeah, and when documents are stored into DocuWare, they are stored as PDFs. So so you would want to have some kind of a PDF reader to be able to access that.
Got it. All right, we have a few more questions here. Again, if we
Right.
don't get to answer your questions, we'll definitely follow up after the webinar. So just a few more questions. If a client must sign a proof of delivery, where will they register as an SMS has to be produced?
Could you repeat the question maybe, Nicole? I
Yeah.
missed something.
If a client must sign a proof of delivery, where will they register that an SMS has to be produced? I believe that's what they're
Okay,
asking.
okay. So for that scenario, I think the biometric signature is the best. The face-to-face scenario is the best solution with the tablets. Actually, what we were talking before. There's no need for an SMS. The SMS is only required for remote signatures. In face-to-face scenario, you have the person in front of you, so there's no need for this kind of approach. And we have a lot of use cases where in delivery and proof of delivery and other processes in face-to-face scenarios, you can use this approach. So the tablet will be the right place without a need of having any SMS or any need to register the SMS in that sense.
Also, alternatively, with DocuWare, if you have a proof of delivery ticket that somebody's signing ink to paper with the DocuWare paper scan application, a photograph can be taken of that particular proof of delivery and automatically uploaded into DocuWare. That's one way of doing it. And we also can create a form where the signer can actually look at the form on a tablet or on a phone, as Daniel was saying, and just sign off with their finger or a stylus in a space provided.
Got it. Next question, can a form be partially completed and forwarded for additional information or a signature?
Rich?
I think we need to understand a little bit more. Are they talking about forwarding that to a signer through validated ID, or are they talking internally? If it's something that they just want to be able to send something to someone through validated ID, I don't think the entire form would need to be filled out. But again, that's a question I'd really want to understand what the use case would be for that, and why we would be sending a partially filled form out for signature.
Okay, yeah, we can follow up with then that one was from Scott. Next question, is it integrated with any certifying entity? That's from Roberto.
So we do work with different certification authorities. mostly European ones, and we have ability to give you also certificates that can be used for the US and other regions. So yeah, we are integrated with about 15 different certification authorities, and we can help you in that process as well through the validated ID assistance.
Okay. We do have a few more questions. Are you guys good to keep answering? There seems to be a lot of
Sure.
good questions here. Okay, great. Next
Great.
question, is Signature available for workflow users or full user licenses only?
Rich?
Signature would be, as far as internally with the stamp, that's available for workflow users.
Okay. Next question, is this something where we could upload a client's data / demographic sheet onto an iPad and then the client could then update any of the information? This would be at the front desk.
Yeah, so as I said also before, the idea would be the best way to do this is to have a DocuWare form where people can add all the information they want to the form. Once the form is ready, then it's sent to our app in the native device, and then the signature can be collected. So yeah, that would be a great example of where you can use the solution and integration between us and validated in the DocuWare.
Got it. How do you add the date to the signature?
So the date of the signature and the time, by the way, are timestamps used by the third party. This is what we know as a qualified stamp in Europe. It's basically a neutral third party. It's not it's not validated by the computer. It's not the servers of DocuWare. It's not the computer of any one of the sites. It's a neutral third party who collects the time based on the time zone and basically collects a neutral time. This is made basically so that if you have signed a document and somebody deletes the signature, because you can always delete a signature and re-adds the signature, you want to have a neutral party to be able to validate exactly when the time of the signature was done. And that's the reason for this.
Okay, got it. Next question, how does DocuWare handle multiple signatures so we have one final revision at the end?
So in general, this is funny, you know, we see it in Europe. It's a cultural question because most cases there's no really a need to sign multiple times the same document. Validated ID signature maintains the integrity of the document from the first signature, so there's no really a need. Culturally speaking, you sign multiple times the document just to keep the process that somebody won't change the third page for something else. So it's mainly a cultural topic. In that sense, the idea is that you basically signed once the document and the whole document on a hash level. Basically, it's like the fingerprint of the document, what is collected. We have the ability to maintain the integrity of the full document. So there's not really a need for signing each page or signing more than once the document in that sense.
Got it. And next question, do you have to send the code via text? Is email an option?
So the idea behind the SMS is a two-factor authentication. So email it's not a good option because basically what you're doing is you're using the same parameters. So there's no a two-factor authentication. So you're losing part of the evidences. We do support other authentication methods, but depending exactly on the customer, this is something that he can go deeper and check it out. But usually the standard is email and SMS that gives a good two-factor authentication, specifically for the US, for example, that you have a lot of information that you can track back in case of repudiation from the mobile provider. So it's actually SMS is a good traceable process to have a validity, to be able to validate who is the signer in a remote scenario.
Got it. All right, I'm just checking the time. If everyone's good for 5 more minutes, then everyone can head off. Just want to know this is being recorded, so if you're interested in hearing all the questions as well, that will be included in the recording that I will email out to you no later than tomorrow morning. Next question is, can you sequence the signature flow, meaning it has to be signed in a particular order?
Yes, of course. So So the idea here is that you can create in a DocuWare form, in a DocuWare workflow, the idea who needs to sign, where they need to sign, when they need to sign. So everything is managed by DocuWare. And this is one of the good ideas and one of the important aspects of the integration is that we basically manage the signature piece, but the whole workflow process, logic around it, where to sign, etc., is managed by the DocuWare workflow. So you don't need to learn any other solution or learn how to do workflows in other solutions. Everything is inside DocuWare in that sense.
Rich, did you want to add something?
No, actually, basically what I was going to talk about was the workflow within DocuWare. So Daniel took care of that. Thank you, Daniel.
All right, great. Next question. Does the document have to be a DocuWare form?
Rich?
No, absolutely. No, the DocuWare form that I filled out in the beginning, that was just showcasing what our e-forms can do as far as filling out that form and then populating other documents. But whatever document that you have that's inside of DocuWare, whether it's a contract, it could be a Word document, a PDF, or what have you, that can be sent out for through the process for electronic signature.
Got it. Next question is, can you create a signing order? For instance, have Mrs. first and then Mr. second?
Yeah, I
Is
think
that
that was
clear?
very similar to the previous question, which means that yes, you can describe who needs to sign when and where in a specific order, etc. So this is part of the integration and how it works through a DocuWare for a workflow.
Got it. Let me see. Is there a charge per SMS code sent?
So again, we said that we're not going too deep into the pricing, and your DocuWare partner or DocuWare team member can help you. But now it's very accessible, the signature model, and there's no price. It's one price includes the whole solution. And again, please contact your DocuWare partner or your DocuWare team to be able to get prices and a little bit more information about the solution.
Got it, definitely. And then someone's asking, what is the difference again between the remote sign or a stamp?
So the remote signature is when it is actually sent through validated ID to an email address, and then that two-factor authentication kicks in, where somebody opens up an email, they open up validated ID, they access the document, and then they're prompted for a code that will be sent to them where they can access the document and sign the document. Whereas a stamp is simply a stamp where we would do a bitmap of a person's signature, import that into DocuWare, and create a stamp for that, where you could stamp any document within DocuWare as long as you have that stamping authority. And as I had pointed out earlier, the stamp that I created for the presentation actually was connected to a workflow, and it kicked off this whole workflow for the electronic signature. But with our stamps, it doesn't necessarily have to kick off a workflow. If you're a person that has to approve things that have been paid, and you have a stamp with your signature on it that just says paid, that'll work as well. That'll work the same way. It's just not attached to a workflow.
Okay,
And
great.
maybe
Well,
just to
I
add,
hope that answered the question.
sorry, Nicole. Maybe
mhm.
just to add one more phrase about it. The big difference between the stamp and the signatures that Validated I do is, and the DocuWare signature that you're seeing here, the stamp, is basically that the signatures that are done with our solution, they keep the identity of the signer, the integrity of the document, the intent of the signer, the three eyes in that sense, to be able to have this traceability. The stamp of DocuWare, as Rich was saying, is basically the image of the signature. Well, as you saw when Rich clicked on the signature, you could see that the document has not been changed since the moment that the signature was applied, and that the valid ID of the identity of the person is valid. So this has an upper layer of security in the process.
Got it. All right, looks like we just have 3 questions left and then we'll wrap it up. Are signatures required to have a password?
No, the idea of the SMS and the
No,
second factor. Ah, sorry.
Yeah, well, as far as in DocuWare, if you it's up to your whatever your process is. So if you want to have a password necessary to apply a signature, you can absolutely do it. And then, as Daniel was starting to say, it's the two-factor authentication. Is that the direction you were going, Daniel?
Yeah, the two-factor authentication is basically to have a second factor to validate who signed the document. But for example, in the biometric, when you're signing in face-to-face scenarios, there's no password because you're seeing the person in front of you. So you're giving them the tablet to sign there. So there's no need for anything like that.
Got it. Second to last question, is electronic notary an option?
So this is a good question. We are not an electronic notary in that sense, but we do have already customers in the US using our platform, validated ID platform with DocuWare to be e-notaries. So that's the answer basically. We're not an e-notary ourselves. It needs to be used with an e-notary that can use our solution to be an e-notary.
Got it. All right, and just last question for today. This is a great solution. In Latin America countries, the entities that validate signatures are public. Can we integrate the workflow for these entities in addition to validated ID?
So the answer is yes and no. Yes, in most cases, we know how to work with this. For these kind of processes, the main important piece of the puzzle is that we need PFX or P12 certificates. And this is something that most of the certification authorities can give you. Once it's in a software, the certificate, we can upload it and then you can use it. It's one of the solutions. We didn't see exactly the solution. This is the centralized solution. But again, contact your DocuWare partner or the DocuWare team, and they can help you reach us, and we can do a demo and show you this kind of approach as well when you need this kind of processes.
Great. All right. It looks like all the questions we have. If we weren't able to answer your question, or if you need more information, don't hesitate to reach out to us or your DocuWare partner at any time, be it today, tomorrow, next week. We're here to help you. All right, with that, I will be emailing you the recording and slides tomorrow morning. Thank you again, Rich and Daniel, for the demos and your insight and answers to all these questions. I hope everyone has a great rest of your day. Thank you and take care.
Thank you, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.